The Newsagents USA.
Trump is a con man. He asked me to pay off an adult film star with whom he had an affair and to lie about it to his wife, which I did. And lying to the First Lady is one of my biggest regrets because she is a kind, good person, and I respect her greatly, and she did not deserve that. And I'm giving the committee today a copy of the $130,000 wire transfer from me to Miss Clifford's attorney during the closing days of the presidential campaign that was demanded by Miss Clifford to maintain her silence about her affair with Mr. Trump.
That was Michael Cohen in February of 2019, 5 years ago. Michael Cohen was Donald Trump's former personal lawyer, and he is now a convicted felon and perjurer. But this week, he is the star witness for the prosecution in the trial that is trying to send Donald Trump to jail over covering up hush money payments to Stormy Daniels.
Which means it is the most high-risk star witness to have, given his previous form. But Michael Cohen has stood up in court and said, yeah, I did lie, but I did it at the behest of Donald Trump and for Donald Trump. It has been electrifying. Welcome to the Newsagents USA.
The Newsagents USA.
It's John.
It's Emily. And we should explain a little bit about this Michael Cohen character because he feels larger than life. He was an attorney, a reluctant attorney, who really wanted to be a fixer, wanted to be the guy who just made Donald Trump's problems go away. And for years, he really was that. He was so loyal to Donald Trump. He basically ironed out and I think it's fair to say intimidated many journalists who were printing things that he didn't like, that Donald Trump didn't like. He ironed out legal woes and sometimes he took it into his own hands to sort of sort things out because, you know, he thought that Donald Trump wouldn't like them. Why is he on the stand right now? Because it was Michael Cohen who paid initially from his own money $130,000 to Stormy Daniels to try and shut her up, after it was feared that she would start talking about the night she spent in a hotel room in Nevada with Donald Trump just before the 2016 election campaign that Trump was trying to win.
And when this all came to light, Donald Trump sought to argue that he didn't know anything about it. He didn't know that Michael Cohen had handed out $130,000 of his own money to Stormy Daniels to buy her silence. I mean, look, I've got a lot of lawyers who are friends of mine. I've worked with some wonderful lawyers over the years. I've never had a lawyer who's offered just to pay out $130,000
without mentioning it
to you. Because normally, if you get a lawyer to do something for you, the one thing I have found is that a bill tends to come through at the end of it
pretty quickly
indeed. And so the idea that Michael Cohen was doing this off his own bat was just preposterous. But of course, he is a convicted felon. He lied to Congress. He has had other offences that have been taken into account. He has gone to jail for what he did.
And moreover, it is a very, very daring moment for the prosecution, this, because Michael Cohen is somebody who has made no bones about the fact that he now hates Donald Trump. He runs a podcast. He has a podcast called Mea Culpa. And the merchandise of Mea Culpa is a T-shirt that he wears around the place, which has a very clearly depicted Donald Trump character in an orange jumpsuit behind bars. So at the moment, the prosecution is feeling its way in this testimony with a key witness, trying to get him to say things that will incriminate Donald Trump, but trying not to make the jury think, oh, well, he clearly hates him. Let's just play you a little bit from Michael Cohen's own podcast to give you a sense of what he really thinks of the guy in the dock.
6 weeks of having to park his ass at the defendant's table and keep his big fucking mouth shut is not gonna be easy. How's he gonna stay awake? No food or drink is allowed in the courtroom. So how's he gonna get his Diet Coke caffeine fix? And no matter what the temperature is in the courtroom, it's not working for Trump. I mean, he's like fucking Goldilocks. It's too hot, it's too cold, it's never just right. The Republicans must be worried that Trump, who absolutely looks fucking terrible by all accounts, and my understanding smells like shit too.
Yeah, so Goldilocks. I mean,
one loose cannon.
One loose cannon. But the funny thing is that the prosecution have had him on the stand and obviously got him to try and set out the case, as you said, Emily, about, you know, how to incriminate Donald Trump. And the defense counsel for Donald Trump have started to cross-examine Michael Cohen. And they have said to him, and they've tried to kind of needle him and try to provoke him. And they said at one point there was a bit of cross-examination where, you know, you said on your podcast that Donald Trump is a and Michael Cohen goes, yeah, that's the sort of thing I would have said. And so Michael Cohen is owning it. Yeah. He's not afraid to run away from it.
And actually, I think the prosecution started with that. The prosecution realised that if they didn't want to lose the jury straight away, they had to make Michael Cohen admit that he had lied in the past, that he had gone to prison, to put it all out there, to put it all out front. So just clarify for the jury, you did that, yes, you lied, yeah, you perjured yourself, yeah. So in a way, they're stopping the defence from trying to score goals. But I think the other line of attack that the defence can use, I think pretty easily, is that he's made money from Donald Trump, from hating Donald Trump, from the podcast, from his books. He literally wrote a book called Revenge, and he's made, you know, millions of dollars from this. So in essence, what kind of a man are they dealing with on the witness stand right now?
I mean, the funny thing is, of course, that in another world, Donald Trump would be absolutely full of love and admiration.
Well, he was.
For Michael Cohen, for the way that he's monetized it, the way that he's branded it.
My kind of guy.
My kind of guy. Look at the marketeering that has gone on here. This is my stuff. This is what I do. And it's like Donald Trump has taught him everything. You know, took Michael Cohen, the boy, turned him into the man, and now he is on the stand talking against the defendant, Donald Trump. It is remarkable what's unfolding there.
Well, joining us now to get a bit of a sense of the drama from inside the courtroom is Perry Stein. She's the Washington Post reporter covering the Justice Department, and she gets, I don't know whether to say lucky you, Perry, but you're in there every day. I mean, Wednesday we can talk to you because the court isn't sitting, but just take us through the Michael Cohen testimony as someone who was in the room.
So it's been something, right? So we had 2 days, pretty much a day and a half of the prosecutors, so that's the government, questioning Michael Cohen. And what they did was give pretty kind of gentle questions, so to speak, right? This is their witness. So he came off as a very calm, professional, decisive person, his answers. And obviously that's in sharp contrast to what everyone else has described him as kind of a brash, cursing liar. And so then at the end of the day, then the defense, meaning Trump's attorneys, got to question this key witness. And they tried to show a very different version of Michael Cohen. They tried to show him as someone who's this brash liar who can't even keep track of his lies, who's trying to make money off of Trump, and he has made money off of Trump. And so it was two kind of versions of Michael Cohen that we started to see, and it's which version are jurors going to buy. What
about the jury? I mean, was there a sense, I don't know how you know this, but was there a sense that they were kind of taking him all in, or that they were, I don't know. Do you get any sense when you're in the room of whether people are buying what they're hearing?
Yeah, so it's interesting. A lot of reporters, I mean, we go in and out of the main room and the overflow room, right? And because there's just such high interest in this trial, but they purposefully in that overflow room do not show you the faces of the jurors, right? They want to keep it as, I mean, if you're in the courtroom, you do get to see him. And I can tell you this, like Michael Cohen, he did a lot of things that elicited laughter. You know, we've heard weeks and weeks of people just calling him a guy with an explosive temper. And then when it came down to Todd Blanche, that's Trump's attorneys, asking a question, he was able to elicit some laughter from the room.
But he did say, crucially perhaps, that he'd like to see Trump jailed.
He did say that he would like to see Trump jailed. It took a while for him to exactly say those exact words, but he said, I want Trump to be convicted. And that's the prosecutors don't want him to say that, I'm sure.
I've been to the Washington Post offices in DC, where I know that you keep a tally of what social media stories are doing well and all the rest of it. Is America as gripped by this as the journalists are, or we are?
That's a good question. Look, I mean, I think there is high reader interest, and this is the first prosecution, the first president ever on trial. So there is interest. Now, there's 4 criminal trials. We've been following these along for now more than a year, all 4 of these criminal trials. This is the first one to go to trial. I mean, there is high interest. I'm sure there is also some fatigue. I'm sure you have friends, or all of us in the States have friends who are like, I'll pay attention when the verdict comes out, right? I mean, I'm tired of this. So I think it's a mix.
One of the oddest spectacles, Perry, by the sounds of it, was the people that were there supporting Trump in the gallery. Not his wife, not his friends and close family, but his potential VP picks. Just talk us through who you saw there.
Yeah, that was crazy. I mean, it's just interesting. It has been playing out as kind of a Veep stakes, right? You saw J.D. Vance there, a potential vice presidential pick. You saw the Florida congressman there, also a potential vice president pick. Doug Burnham, the North Dakota governor who ran for the Republican nominee, also there. So what's really interesting about that is that Trump, right, we know there's a gag order, so he can't speak out against Michael Cohen. He can't attack Michael Cohen. He can't attack Stormy Daniels. But these guys are coming here and kind of doing that for him.
Perry, listen, thank you very much indeed. We're going to now have a listen to what some of the loyal Trump supporters have been saying outside the court. But Perry Stein from the Washington Post, thank you so much for taking the time to take us through the hearing.
Thank you for having me.
And perhaps the most remarkable person that we saw outside the court there to be a cheerleader for Donald Trump was the man who is the 3rd most senior person in the US Constitution, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mike Johnson. So after the president, the vice president, the Speaker of the House is the next most senior person. And he's come up to New York to cheerlead for someone who is on trial as a duly constituted part of the Constitution for making, illicit payments to a former porn star.
President Trump is a friend, and I wanted to be here to support him. I'm here speaking with you outside because the court won't allow us to speak inside the building. That's just one of the many things that are wrong here. This is the 5th week that President Trump has been in court for this sham of a trial. They are doing this intentionally to keep him here and keep him off of the campaign trail.
I mean, it is incredible. It is jaw-dropping. Do not normalise that moment where, as John says, it's the 3rd most powerful elected official in America who is repeating Trump's narrative that the whole trial is a sham, that somehow democracy has tried to shut them down, that they're not allowed to do this inside the court. I mean, I would have thought that was fairly standard procedure anyway. But more than that this is a man who is doing the bidding of the king of the Republican Party right now. It tells you everything you need to know about where power lies in America, even though Donald Trump is not in office. And Donald Trump, I guess you could say, is following his gag order. In other words, he hasn't been tweeting as much since those fines came down. He hasn't been talking shitposting basically about the judge's family or about witnesses or about jurors or about any of the people who are part of the trial. But he is making people or accepting the words of people who are doing his bidding for him, even if they should be in positions of complete neutrality in a criminal trial.
Look, you had the Speaker there, and I can't underline enough what you just said, Emily, about you cannot normalise this. You have had the Speaker of the House of Representatives complaining about this sham of a trial.
Yeah.
It is a trial that has been duly constituted under the laws of the United States of America, according to all the constitutional arrangements. If he is innocent, the jury will decide that. If he is guilty, the jury will decide that. That is how justice works. You don't.
In the free world.
It's in a free world. You believe in due process. And so a trial has been duly constituted. A charge has been made. There has been a grand jury met to decide whether this trial should go ahead. It is going ahead. Let it play itself out. Don't try and kind of spoil everything before the jury has reached a verdict. And that is what is so kind of reprehensible about what is unfolding.
Well, meanwhile, Donald Trump, who has to sit, as you heard from Mike Johnson, silent, not tweeting, not with a phone, not able to kind of get up and walk around in the courtroom pretty much from 8 until 5
What, you
every
mean like
day.
any other defendant who's been on
Yeah,
trial?
like a normal person who's on trial. But still, I mean, I think we can all accept that that would be a pretty massive shock to your system to be in court 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, all day long. And what you get at the end of each day is this kind of explosion. He comes out of the courtroom, he faces the waiting media there, and he just does this kind of, freestyle ramble that makes him sound a bit like a droning lawnmower. But he goes on and on and on. We'll give you a little flavour of it.
Mr. Trump, will you testify?
I do have a lot of surrogates, and they are speaking very beautifully, and they come all from all over Washington, and they're highly respected, and they think this is the greatest scam they've ever seen. And some are Democrats. They're very embarrassed by what's going on. I just want to start by saying that on the electric vehicles that Biden is pushing down everybody's throat, even though people don't want them, he wants to put a...
I mean, leave aside, Donald Trump riffing, which, we know he loves to do.
Well, this is the campaigning. This is the only bit of campaigning that he's really able to do
so
on a weekly
vehicles
basis.
is one of the things. And where actually Biden is sort of following Trump economic policies because, the Biden administration announcing tough new kind of tariffs that will be imposed on Chinese-made EVs coming into the US, which is what Donald Trump has said as well. But it's just the idea that these senior politicians who are, jockeying to be vice presidential pick, feel they have to go to a New York courtroom to be in Donald Trump's good graces. And that is the only route open to them to show how much they love Donald.
Isn't it? I mean, what is extraordinary is it turns everything on its head. If somebody is sort of facing charges, what you notice is that everyone else disappears. Everyone else keeps their head down. Normally, if somebody's like, oh, well, apparently he's, oh, I am his friend, but I'm just going to keep my distance. Well, we don't know. Well, we'll let the courts decide. Everyone scarpers. They don't rush towards the courtroom at that point to try and hold him up, right?
When the House of Commons started televising its proceedings, there was this whole process known as donutting, where MPs, if an MP got up to speak, they would want people around them so it didn't look like the chamber was empty, and that there would be a donut effect of a few MPs sitting near them when they spoke. We are seeing donutting now happening outside the court, where Donald Trump can't walk in by himself. He has to have a donut of senior Republicans around him to show that Donald Trump is not alone, but he has got the Republican establishment who are in tow behind him. So RFK Jr., Robert Kennedy Jr., who is running as an independent in this election. There's new polling coming out which shows that he is doing way, way better than any independent who has run in recent years in key swing states, 10%, 12%, upwards, doing very well among young people who are kind of frankly appalled at the choice between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, also doing well among Latinos and the black population who kind of would normally be expected to vote Democrat.
Yeah, I think we should give you a bit of the background on RFK because he comes from, political royalty. He is a Kennedy. He is the son of Robert Kennedy, the assassinated former Attorney General. But he's also the man who last week revealed he had a worm in his brain and apparently had been there for many years. He was trying to explain why he was wired in that certain way. But I think it's quite important to understand that when he first entered the race, we thought he was going to be the Conor Roy candidate, right, for Succession Lovers. We thought he was going to be a 1%er, somebody who could just shift these tiny margins, maybe in interesting swing states, but wouldn't really take a whole package home of the vote. And he's on about 16% in the latest surveys, which is enough to really throw things out. And I don't know whether young people are genuinely leaving Biden to come to RFK or whether they are saying they are because they're cross at the moment. They're furious with what they perceive to be Biden's stance over the Gaza issue, and many of the protesters are kind of looking for alternatives. But it is actually Trump now who is getting more worried by RFK because he perceives that that vote will take away more from him than from Biden.
So one of Trump's big funders got behind RFK, and the calculation when that happened was clearly that RFK, Democrat royalty, as Emily said, was going to be in the race, was going to hurt Joe Biden much more. Other things to consider about RFK Jr., aside from the worm in his brain, is that he's a conspiracy theorist, like Donald Trump. He's a bit anti-vax, like Donald Trump. He's a COVID skeptic, like Donald Trump. So who is he going to attract voters from? Donald Trump. Yeah. And I think the Trump campaign have woken up to the danger that RFK might be hurting their man much more than Biden. And so they're turning their fire. And so what you've got in RFK Jr. is this really powerful weapon, an exocet, a missile, I don't know what you want to call it, but it has got no guidance system on it. And so nobody knows where this thing is going to blow up. Is it going to explode the Republicans, or is it going to explode the Democrats?
Or actually what he stands for. I mean, when Ralph Nader came into the race in 2000, everyone understood him as the kind of the green candidate, right? The environmental candidate, the left-wing candidate.
And Jill Stein in 2016.
And Jill Stein and Ross Perot, who was the one who really sort of started to blow things up in 1996. At the moment, it looks as if RFK is polling better than any of those sort of third party candidates or third candidates. And that's really extraordinary for a race that some people are already saying could go into, a dead heat, a tie. I mean, sort of outside of Veep, I don't think we've ever seen a dead tie, right?
So you remember, I mean, everyone watched it. It was absolutely compelling piece of television, I think, this year, when that container ship hits the bridge in Baltimore, the Francis Scott Key Bridge. The bridge collapses.
Like dominoes. You had to watch it over and over again, didn't you, just to see it?
I watched it over and over.
Yeah.
And, of course, the ship is still kind of marooned there. The hull badly damaged. And they were letting off controlled explosions yesterday to remove bits of the bridge. I was completely flabbergasted to read today that 21 crew members are still on board, haven't left the ship yet.
This is a BBC Washington News article which is telling us that 21 sailors remain stranded on board, not because of physical difficulties, not because they can't get out or they're trapped. It's not like a Kursk situation, for those of you who remember the Russian submarine. This is all about visa restrictions, that the administration doesn't want to let them or won't let them come aboard because they haven't got the right paperwork to be on land, in other words, in mainland America.
So there are 21 of them, 20 Indians, 1 Sri Lankan, and they are stuck on this hellhole of a ship that lost all electrical power. So God knows what the conditions are like on board this vessel, but they have been marooned there for 21 days. The ship doesn't look like it's going to be going anywhere in a hurry, and they are there in Baltimore Harbour, not going anywhere.
The quote of the century is this one: they're rattled. They didn't have Wi-Fi until Saturday, and they didn't really know what the perception of the rest of the world was. They weren't sure if they were being blamed or demonised. They just didn't know what to expect. I think if this story gets traction and you understand that there is probably a racial element to this, there is probably a reason. If it had been 20 American sailors, I think they would all have been off that boat pretty damn quickly. But as it is, they're foreign workers, they haven't done the paperwork, and nobody seems to have really checked in on them to see what on earth is going on and how they have faced the last few weeks pretty much in the hold of a boat.
Poor them. Really. I mean, how ghastly. Anyway, look, we'll be back next week. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
The Newsagents USA.